Since Empress Huta was willing to support the hidden sect, he did not have to be too wary. Who in the immortal world would be his match when he became a sage? Empress Huta and Hanju chatted for a while more. It was nothing much and could be considered polite. After the dream ended, Hanju opened his eyes and discovered that Qingwaner had unknowingly appeared beside him. She was already used to Hanju being lost in thought. She leaned on his shoulder and sighed softly. "Husband, do you think Tuar can survive?" Hanju smiled secretly as he thought, "With the cultivation technique you taught him, don't you know?" Qingwaner was not an ordinary person and had a special bloodline, but it wasn't passed down to Han Tuo. How could her bloodline compare to Hanju's? See you! Although her background was not simple, Qingwaner indeed didn't have a cultivation level. Hanju had deduced that she had been cursed when she was young. The other party's cultivation level was only at the Grand Unity True Immortal Realm. Furthermore, the one who had been cursed was not her, but her parents. If not for meeting him, she would have died in the snow. Hanju said, "It's fine. If he's dead, we'll make another one." Qingwaner glared and rebuked him. "What are you saying? I'm just teasing you. Don't worry. He's a lucky fellow. I'll protect him." Sigh, what a pity. He doesn't have cultivation potential. It's all my fault. Qingwaner fell into self-blame. Hanju didn't ask why it was all her fault. He knew what happened to her just by calculating with his fingers. He didn't even use the derivation function. Hanju looked up at the snow outside the city. A little fellow was approaching the Eastern Guard City. The danger of the Eastern Guard City was coming. Boom! A huge stone descended from the sky and smashed onto the city wall. The city wall shook violently and rubble flew everywhere. More than 10 soldiers were injured and 4 of them turned into meat patties. Not far away, Han Tuo's face turned pale and his body trembled. He had inherited Hanju's appearance and was extremely outstanding among the surrounding soldiers. However, when facing life and death, he was also extremely flustered. Although he had always been tempering his body, he rarely had the chance to fight. He turned around and saw a huge figure approaching amidst the flying snow. The blurry figure looked as if it came from the netherworld. It was terrifying and brought despair. An Earth Immortal Realm ferocious beast. "Everyone, be careful. Its fire can burn souls." An immortal master on a distant tower shouted in horror. His words terrified the soldiers on the city wall. The cultivators in the sky also fled in fear of being targeted. Below the city wall, there was a continuous stream of ferocious beasts. These ferocious beasts were not big. It had been nearly 30,000 years since the heavenly Tao had been restarted. The first batch of connate life forms and ferocious beasts had already given birth to descendants. The potential of the second generation of living beings was inferior to the first generation. Their bloodline and talent conflicted after generation, causing more and more ordinary living beings to appear. Of course, most living beings were still very strong. Because the humans were weak, powerful people disdained to find trouble with them, or they knew that the humans had a background. Those who found trouble with the humans were basically all ferocious beasts and connate races at the bottom rung of the immortal world. Even so, the human race could no longer expand. It was common to see such a situation. Han Tuo looked at the battle ahead. He gripped the iron spear in his hand tightly and pushed the beasts that kept charging up the city wall down. As the battle continued, Han Tuo gradually became numb. This battle lasted for an unknown period of time. Every time Han Tuo felt that he was about to die, the attacks of the ferocious beasts would coincidentally miss. Han Tuo felt that he was in a daze. The long battle made him extremely tormented. Perhaps he wanted to die deep down. After the battle ended, the city lord announced that the soldiers at the front line could go home and rest. Han Tuo returned home covered in injuries. He only nodded in a daze when the servants greeted him. Unknowingly, he arrived in the courtyard and discovered that his father was still staring at the sky like a stone statue. Hanju felt his gaze and looked down at him with a smile. Han Tuo was stunned for a moment before his heart warmed. Why did he want to fight? He wanted to protect this family. Han Tuo knelt down in front of him and cupped his fists. Father! I've returned alive. Looking at his excited expression, Hanju smiled and reached out to touch his head. It's been hard on you, Hanju said softly. Han Tuo couldn't stand the injustice and immediately wailed. He was still a child, after all. Hanju pulled him into his arms and accompanied him in silence. After a long while, Han Tuo looked up and asked, Father, you don't seem to be afraid of the danger Eastern Guard City is facing. Ever since he was young, he had never seen his father panic. He was clearly an ordinary person without any cultivation potential. Why was he so calm? He even felt that his father was more mature than the immortal masters he had seen. Hanju replied, What's the use of being afraid? Can that help the human race eliminate the ferocious beasts? Han Tuo could only think that he was carefree. Don't you want to cultivate? Why do you want to join the army? Hanju suddenly asked. Stunned, Han Tuo said, I wanted to cultivate, but the Eastern Guard City was attacked, so I had no choice but to join the army. Hanju asked, Since you want to cultivate, why fight for this city? Cultivation is the path to longevity. You will encounter many such situations. You can't save everyone. How can you guarantee that you will live until the end? Han Tuo was stunned again. He had indeed not thought of this question. But isn't it natural for humans to help other humans? Han Tuo asked in surprise. Why should we? You might think that you are born of the human race, so you want to save them. In the future, if something happens to the region where the Eastern Guard City is guarding, won't you save a region? In the future, if something happens to the immortal world, won't you save the immortal world? Furthermore, if something happens to the heavenly Tao, won't you fight for the heavenly Tao? Hanju asked question after question, causing Han Tuo to become speechless. It sounded reasonable. Han Tuo followed Hanju's line of thought and couldn't help but feel his scalp tingle. Too tiring. Although Han Tuo was kind, he was not that noble. Read Lat St chapters at No, V, E, L, Bin Com. Only Hanju said earnestly, if you really have the heart to cultivate the Tao, leave as soon as possible. The calamity of Eastern Guard City won't end. You're insignificant now. It's better for you to go out and train. You can return to protect the city when you are stronger. With that, Hanju closed his eyes and continued to comprehend the world. The so-called comprehending the world was actually prying into the myriad worlds of the mortal world. Han Tuo stood where he was for a long time before finally leaving. 5 years later, Hanju was drinking in the courtyard when he suddenly saw figures flying over. One of them was Ji Xiansheng. They hung high above the sea of clouds. Other than Hanju, no one discovered them. An old immortal beside Ji Xiansheng said, This city has the bloodline of the Green Phoenix race. Although it's weak, we can rope them in. Furthermore, they've been through war all year round and are suffering. If the heavenly ancestor lends a hand, they will definitely be grateful. Ji Xiansheng frowned. The potential of the people in this city is too poor. I won't appear. Any one of you can go and preach. The others will follow me to the next city. It seemed that the heavenly race was indeed in chaos. Ji Xiansheng had even begun to search for his own force in the human race. Unfortunately, you saw wrongly. There was the strongest talent in the world hidden here. Hanju wasn't overly caring of Han Tuo, but hearing how disdainful Ji Xiansheng was, he suddenly wanted to promote him. No matter what, Han Tuo was still his son. If his name shook the immortal world in the future, Hanju would also be proud. Hanju looked at Han Tuo. This kid was cultivating in the small mountains in the city. He had not gone to the battlefield in the past 5 years. It was mainly because, in the past few years, there had not been much danger in the Eastern Guard City. The few times the beast tide had been at the lowest scale, the body tempering technique taught by Chingwaner was not bad. At least among the people of the same age in the Eastern Guard city, including cultivators, they were not Han Tuo's match. Hanju waved his hand, and a ball of dermic powers flew into Han Tuo's body. This ball of dermic powers would loosen the bloodline seal in Han Tuo's body by about a 10,000th. It was enough for him to soar. The reason why he did not release it completely was that the bloodline of the primordial fiend Celestial was too powerful. He was afraid that Han Tuo would directly lose himself and even alarm the sages. That day, Han Tuo suddenly felt relaxed and full of strength. His cultivation progressed even more smoothly. In this year, a body cultivator prodigy appeared in Eastern Guard City. His name was Han Tuo. He was less than 20 years old and could lift a 1,000,000-pound boulder. He alerted all the immortals in the city. 10 years later, Han Tuo relied on his own strength to sweep through all the ferocious beast nests near the city. His reputation spread throughout the nearby human cities. That night, Hanju, Chingwaner, and Han Tuo were eating when Han Tuo suddenly put down his bowl and chopsticks. He took a deep breath and looked up at Hanju. "Father, I plan to listen to you and leave the Eastern Guard City to pursue the immortal Tao." The hand that Chingwaner held the bowl trembled slightly. She forced a smile and said, "Tuor, have you thought it through? After leaving home, you can only rely on yourself." She knew best what cultivation meant. If Han Tuo returned after leaving, she and Hanju would probably be buried by then. Han Tuo took a deep breath and nodded seriously. He looked at Hanju. Even though he was already a famous prodigy of the human race, his respect for Hanju didn't decrease at all. He had always felt that his father was not simple and had seen the world. Hanju asked, "This might be our last meal. Eat and drink well. I only have 2 pieces of advice for you when you seek the Tao. Cultivate in a low-profile manner and stay away from trouble. Don't provoke others, but don't let others provoke you." Han Tuo's heart was moved and his eyes turned red. He also knew that if he left now, things would definitely change. However, his Tao heart could not be suppressed. Hanju snorted. "Don't act like a child. Remember, tears are the most useless thing. If you cry outside, others will only think that you're easy to bully." Han Tu could only hold back his tears. That night, the lights in the Han family's residence were kept on. The next morning, Hanju and Chingwaner stood in front of the door and watched Han Tuo depart. Han Tuo turned around every 3 steps before finally disappearing around the corner. Hanju was still a little emotional. He had watched Han Tuo grow up. Now that his son had grown up and was pursuing his own life, he had never felt such emotions. Back then, young Tiandong and the chaotic heavenly dog's departure had not given him such feelings. Indeed, his own bloodline felt different. Chingwaner still cried in the end and leaned into his arms. Time passed. Year after year, Chingwaner began to age. Read the latest stories, and Novibin, Calm Hanju also grew old with her. They were like a normal mortal couple. 50 years later, the old Chingwaner lay on the bed and looked weakly at Hanju. She raised her trembling right hand and said softly, Husband. Hanju asked, "What other wishes do you have?" "I have no regrets in this life. It's just that before I die, I don't know about Tuor's situation. Don't worry, he will attain the Tao. If we have a next life, in the cycle of reincarnation, he will probably come to visit us." Of course. Chingwaner slowly closed her eyes. A benevolent and expectant smile appeared on her face as she left the world. Hanju's expression was calm. He felt no sorrow or relief. Everything happened naturally. The next day, Hanju dismissed the servants and quietly left Eastern Guard City. After leaving, he came to a forest. He took out Chingwaner's corpse and buried it in the soil, setting up a tombstone. The white-haired Hanju stood in front of the tombstone. On the tombstone was the words "Grave of my wife, Qing Wan'er." If Han Tuo returned and saw the tombstone, he would probably be able to resolve his worries. At this moment, a crimson fox appeared behind Hanju and looked at him obediently. Although 100 years had passed, to the crimson fox, it had only slept. Hanju didn't seem to notice its arrival and stood in front of the tomb alone to reminisce about his life. It had to be said that although life was short, there was always joy and suffering. It was not meaningless. However, to Hanju, the true meaning was eternal life. His feelings for Qing Wan'er were only for the sake of comprehending the Tao. They were not deep. Even if Qing Wan'er died, this lifetime was still blissful. This karma ended here. In the cycle of reincarnation, I hope you can still, Hanju muttered to himself. He fell silent before he finished speaking. Forget it. Hanju waved his right hand and turned to look at the crimson fox. He smiled and said, "You still recognize me?" The crimson fox replied, "Yes." Hanju's white hair fell down like fluttering cotton. His skin quickly recovered, and he turned into an unparalleled appearance again. His black hair was like snow and his white robe fluttered in the wind. The sun and moon yin-yang protection appeared behind him and shone with divine light, like an immortal standing in the mortal world. The crimson fox was stunned. Hanju looked at Qing Wan'er's tombstone and bowed, just like the wedding ceremony in the hall decades ago. "Let's go!" Hanju turned around and left. He ascended to the sky step by step. It was as if there was an invisible ladder under his feet. The crimson fox flew into the sky and followed closely behind. 100 Peak Immortal River. Hanju and the crimson fox quietly moved to the Taoist temple. Through the heavenly puppet, he knew that the hidden sect had not changed much in the past 100 years. Everything was as before, and no disciple had come to find him. Hanju said, "Cultivate in front of the Taoist temple in the future. Don't walk around." The crimson fox was still stunned. The immortal chi here. It felt its cultivation level increase by just breathing. Immortal realm. It was definitely in an immortal realm. It hurriedly nodded and thanked him. Hanju returned to the Taoist temple and sat on the 36th grade reincarnation world destruction Black Lotus. He exhaled. These 100 years actually felt longer than 10,000 years, but it was not boring. Hanju opened the emails and saw an email that showed that his 100 years of life experience were real. Your son Han Tuo has comprehended a Sword Dao mystical power and stepped into the Sword Dao River. Hanju's eyes became firm as he muttered, "Sage Dao, I'm finally coming. Sages, are you prepared to welcome me?" His sage heart had been formed after 100 years of tempering. "Today, I will attain the Dao. This is my desire, this is my want." He began to break through in seclusion. How could he break through? It was naturally to comprehend the great Tao of extreme origin. His Tao heart had transformed into the sage heart, and his soul had transformed into the sacred soul. 50 years later, the 100 Peak Immortal River was enveloped by a vast aura, startling many disciples out of their cave abodes. This aura. It's the aura of a sage. I've heard a sage preach the Tao before. I still can't forget this pressure. A sage is attacking? No! Is Sect Master breaking through? Sect Master is indeed a sage. The disciples discussed, and the news quickly spread throughout the hidden sect. The disciples were relieved as long as this pressure was not from an enemy. As for Hanju breaking through, most of the disciples felt that it was normal. His breakthrough speed was always very fast. The personal disciples were stimulated and cultivated even harder. At the same time, Hanju's consciousness entered a vast universe. It was the world of stars in the depths of his soul. Countless stars began to be born. The stars that already existed emitted a dazzling light, causing the entire world of stars to become resplendent. Above all the stars, countless nebulous primordial chi surged over and condensed together. As time passed, a palace condensed. 49 thin celestial stone statues condensed around the palace. They were sinister and terrifying. Their postures were different. The courtyard in the palace was separated, and each had its own strengths. Sacred Palace. This was also Hanju's Tao fruit. After the nebulous primordial chi surged into the sacred palace, it transformed into higher-level dermic power, far exceeding before. Hanju's illusion appeared above the sacred palace. It was the manifestation of his soul. The holy power that overflowed from the sacred palace surged into the illusion of his soul and helped him transform. His soul body emitted 7-colored light that illuminated the entire world of stars. Hanju seemed to have understood something as his voice echoed in the world of stars. This world is called Primordial Chaos. All the living beings in the world of stars heard Hanju's voice. They were in an uproar and didn't understand who was speaking. Inside a palace, the white-robed Buddha, who was cultivating, opened his eyes. His expression was strange as his eyes revealed shock. Primordial chaos. Chaos! What kind of existence is he? The white-robed Buddha had always been very curious about Hanju's background. He felt that Hanju's cultivation speed was really unreasonable. It was very likely that he was the reincarnation of a mighty figure. Now, Hanju was not afraid of great karma and created the primordial chaos, which surprised him even more. Ignoring the white-robed Buddha's shock, Hanju focused on breaking through. At the same time, in the 33rd heaven, all the sages in the various Tao fields opened their eyes, including Ancestor Shitian. Get the L test VLS et al. VEL by Co-Ancestor Shitian calculated with his fingers and frowned. He actually could not deduce it. Who's attaining the Tao? Ancestor Shitian muttered to himself. He hesitated for a moment before standing up. On the other side, the 4 sages of the Tao sect gathered together. Someone is attaining the Tao. South Extreme Heavenly Venerate said in a low voice with an extremely ugly expression. Under their eyes, someone had actually reached the height of Tao attainment. Most importantly, they couldn't guess where the other party was. Li Muyi's eyes flickered. Could it be the master of the hidden sect? Sage Jinan said, even if it's not him, it's related to the hidden sect. We sages can't enter the immortal world. Our disciples can't enter the 100-peak immortal river and can only watch as he attains the Tao. Next, we have to consider changing our attitude towards the hidden sect. Sect Master Tianju sighed. The 4 sages fell silent. Apart from the 4 sages of the Tao sect, the other sages were also shocked. Qiu Shilai even sent a dream to Hanju. Hanju ignored him. After a while, Qiu Shilai started to spam. Qiu Shilai wants to visit you in your dreams. Do you accept? Qiu Shilai wants to visit you in your dreams. Do you accept? Qiu Shilai wants to visit you in your dreams. Do you accept? Detected that you are breaking through to attain the Tao. It has extraordinary significance. The system has activated the autonomous protection mechanism. You are temporarily immune to all dreams. Hanju was about to become furious when he saw the system's words. He heaved a sigh of relief. Previously, he could still think that Qiu Shilai was doing this because of his personality. Now, he felt that Qiu Shilai was a lunatic. He would definitely seek revenge when he succeeded in attaining the Tao. Hanju calmed down and continued to attain the Tao. He would become a sage when his sacred palace successfully condensed and his soul transformed into a sacred soul. Another 100 years passed. Hanju successfully attained the Tao. His dermic powers had completely transformed into sage powers. It was endless. The sacred soul was born. Hanju was so happy that he wanted to scream, but he held back. He checked his attributes panel. Name, Hanju. Race, Primordial Fiend Celestial, Immeasurable Emperor. Cultivation, Early Stage Primordial Chaos Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal Realm, Perfect Sage. Technique, Primordial Chaos Reincarnation Great Tao, Heavenly Cycle Body Tempering. Great Tao of Life and Death, Great Tao of Karma, Great Tao of Extreme Origin. Primordial Chaos Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal. His lifespan was almost doubled. 120 sextillion years. However, Hanju was still a little puzzled. He couldn't live forever even now? On second thought, this was already equivalent to eternal life. Such a lifespan was extremely long. Furthermore, he had been breaking through. Every time he broke through, his lifespan would be refreshed. Perhaps this was the primordial Fian Celestial's definition of undying and imperishable. Hanju stopped thinking and continued to consolidate his cultivation. At the same time, in the entire hidden sect, all cultivators who stepped into the Great Tao of Extreme Origin had their providence and cultivation increased. This feeling was extremely obvious, making them shocked. The personal disciples understood that it was because Hanju was breaking through. The in-name disciples thought that Hanju was using a mystical power. In a valley in the immortal world, Han Tuo was meditating in the array formation when he suddenly opened his eyes and looked at his hands in shock. What's going on? Why did my cultivation speed suddenly increase? Han Tuo muttered to himself, his eyes revealing surprise. He still remembered this feeling. It was the same thing when he was young. His potential suddenly exploded. Could it be that he had broken through his limits again? Han Tuo was very excited. Just you wait. I'll kill all of you when I successfully break through. Han Tuo snorted and continued cultivating. 50 years later, Hanju's cultivation completely stabilized. He had truly become a sage. Detected that you have used your strength to attain the Tao and become a perfect sage. You have the following choices. 1. Exit seclusion immediately and suppress the heavens to become the strongest sage. You can obtain a mystical power inheritance, a heavenly Tao spirit stone, and a great Tao fragment. 2. Cultivate in a low-profile manner and stay away from trouble. You can obtain a great Tao fragment, a supreme treasure, a heavenly Tao spirit stone, and a sage-level Tao field guard. Hanju chose the second option after seeing it. Sage-level Tao field guard. So strong! You chose to cultivate in a low-profile manner and obtained a great Tao fragment, a supreme treasure, a heavenly Tao spirit stone, and a sage-level Tao field guard. Congratulations on obtaining the Heavenly Pure Tao Control Robe. Heavenly Pure Tao Control Robe, defensive Heavenly Tao Supreme Treasure. It can defend against karma mystical powers and can defend against the strongest attack of ordinary sages. Great! Wonderful! Hanju directly took out this supreme treasure and started to make it recognize him as its owner. He had already accumulated 6 great Tao fragments. The new Heavenly Tao Spirit Stone was definitely for the Book of Misfortune. After succeeding, Hanju took off the Heavenly Pure Tao Control Robe and changed into it. As for the Heavenly Constellation Great Tao Robe, he naturally had to leave it to Xing Hongshen. Hanju wasn't in a hurry to upgrade the Book of Misfortune. Instead, he started to duplicate the Sage Guard. The guard could only be chosen from the simulation trial and could not be Hanju himself. He chose Ancestor Shitian. This existence surpasses an ordinary sage. Hanju couldn't help but complain. Weren't non-ordinary sages still sages? It seemed that the sage here was referring to a Heavenly Tao sage. Hanju asked silently, in the Heavenly Tao, which sage is the strongest who is protected by a sage? 4 billion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? Continue! A face appeared in Hanju's mind. It was Li Moyi. Li Moyi wasn't a Heavenly Tao sage, but he was considered an ordinary sage. This was a little strange. However, Hanju would definitely target him. However, Li Moyi's data was not in the simulation trial. It seemed that he had to go to the 33rd heaven. Before that, he had to become as strong as possible. He had to improve his Sword Tao mystical powers first. Several months later, Hanju's Sword Tao mystical powers all reached the Sage realm. He began to cultivate the Grand Unity aspect. His chapter is up at D by NOVE, E, L, by and Co-M this time, It took 50 years. Hanju had cultivated 25 years of fiend celestial Dharma idols and accumulated a total of 74. The newly cultivated fiend celestial Dharma idols were respectively the Heavenly Might Fiend Celestial, Heavenly Boat Fiend Celestial, Mixed Zen Fiend Celestial, Despair Fiend Celestial, Devour Fiend Celestial, Nine Heart Fiend Celestial, Healthy and Celestial, Firmament Fiend Celestial, Galaxy Fiend Celestial, Horned Fiend Celestial, Holy Fiend Celestial, Rage Fiend Celestial, Dream Dao Fiend Celestial, Profound Dream Fiend Celestial, Domination Fiend Celestial, Myriad Forms Fiend Celestial, Nether Fiend Celestial, Void Fiend Celestial, Giant Fiend Celestial, Myriad Worlds Fiend Celestial, Soul Flame Fiend Celestial, Heavenly Dao Fiend Celestial, and Reincarnation Fiend Celestial. Hanju was very regretful about the Heavenly Dao Fiend Celestial and the Reincarnation Fiend Celestial. Were they among the 3,000 Fiend Celestials? The Heavenly Dao was not formed by Pangu? Isn't Reincarnation formed by Empress Hutu? Could they be chaotic Fiend Celestials that were born later? If that was the case, wouldn't the Heavenly Dao also be able to nurture living beings that could become Fiend Celestials? Hanju felt danger just thinking about it. However, he had already become a sage and could protect himself. He began the simulation trial. Fuxishan was suppressed and successfully killed an hour later. It was mainly the providence of the Heavenly Dao. Hanju's Fiend Celestial Dharma idol could consume the providence of the Heavenly Dao on Fuxishan, but it required time. Hanju could insta-kill Fuxishan without the Heavenly Dao's providence. Deciding to go all out, he challenged him again. The 74 Fiend Celestial Dharma idols were all used. The power of the 74 Great Dao attacked. He was finally insta-killed. Awesome! Hanju began to challenge Ancestor Shitian. He was insta-killed. However, this time, it was not a single breath, but a palm. In front of Ancestor Shitian, his dermic powers were directly obliterated. The difference was just too great. Hanju didn't believe in it and challenged Ancestor Shitian crazily. Several days later, he gave up. The best result was that he lasted for 10 breaths of time if all he did was basically hide. Sages were undying and indestructible. That was only relative to the living beings. If they encountered existences of a higher level, it would still be a fatal blow. Hanju sighed and thought silently, if I go to the 33rd heaven to find Li Moyi, will I die? 4 billion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? Continue. If you don't offend Ancestor Shitian, the sages can't do anything to you. Hanju fell into deep thought. There was still a risk. What if Ancestor Shitian wanted to target him? Hanju asked, does Ancestor Shitian have any intention of killing me now? 100 billion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? 100 billion years. As expected of you. Continue. Hanju gritted his teeth and chose. Not for the time being. Hanju heaved a sigh of relief. He stood up and moved to the 33rd heaven. The sun and moon yin-yang protection emitted a divine light that shone on his body. The heavenly pure Dao control robe fluttered. Hanju looked around in the chaos, feeling extremely nervous. Ancestor Shitian, don't suddenly think of messing with me. At this moment, figures appeared in front of him. Li Moyi, South Extreme Heavenly Venerate, Sage Jinan, Sect Master Tianju, Emperor Shao, Chou Shilai, Fuxishan, and Empress Hutu. Apart from Sage Fated Secrets, all the sages who should have come had already arrived. Hanju immediately simulated the trial and copied them down. Li Moyi was the first to speak. Young friend, I didn't expect you to become a sage. Did you rely on my Dao Sect's primordial purple qi? It was his arrangement for Xian Qingjun to steal the primordial purple qi. However, he did not expect that he would lose control of it later, so he was not sure now. Hanju said, why would I need the primordial purple qi to attain the Dao? These words made the sages silent. Empress Huta sized him up with her beautiful eyes. She had succeeded in the gamble. She knew that Hanju's potential was very strong, but she didn't expect him to become a sage. This speed of attaining the Tao was too fast, so fast that it was unreal. Hanju added, "I have no intention of competing with the sages for providence. I hope that you won't scheme against me anymore. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite." With that, he disappeared. The sages looked at each other. Hanju jumped back into the Taoist temple. He couldn't walk in the immortal world. He could feel a powerful repulsive force that could tear him apart at any time. Power of the heavenly Tao. After becoming a sage, Hanju finally knew how terrifying the heavenly Tao was. No wonder the sages had to follow the heavenly Tao's rules and did not dare to rashly disobey. Hanju began to choose to duplicate the Tao field guard. Without any surprise, he chose Li Muyi. It took time to duplicate. Hanju could wait. He took out the Book of Misfortune and the Heavenly Tao Spirit Stone and started to upgrade it. After 10 years, the Book of Misfortune finally upgraded successfully. Book of Misfortune successfully upgraded to a Heavenly Tao Supreme Treasure. Hanju smiled. He was a sage and wielded a Heavenly Tao Supreme Treasure. He felt that he could kill a sage. An unprecedented sense of power made him even want to look down on sages. Awesome! Hanju decided not to curse for the time being. Sage Fated Secrets had already gone mad and was better off dead. He was no threat for the time being. As for the other sages, he would wait and see their reaction. Hanju stood up and prepared to preach the Tao for the hidden sect. At this moment, Sage Jinan's hatred towards you has increased. Current hatred points, 4 stars. Hanju was stunned. This fellow, he's asking to get killed. Hanju didn't curse immediately. It would easily expose his identity. He would go out and preach the Tao first and curse after some time. I'm preparing to preach the Tao. The disciples of the hidden sect are to come and listen. Hanju's voice resounded throughout the 100-peak Immortal River. All the disciples became excited. The day had finally come for the Tao preaching. Outside the Suisun RD heaven, in a dark palace, a mirror floated in front of Sage Jinan. There was a figure in the mirror that could not be seen clearly. This new sage is indeed suspicious. He's the variable that the Tao ancestor has determined. He will definitely stop our great cause. We have to think of all ways to lure him out of the heavenly Tao. It's best to draw him to the deity realm of the ruins of End. A slightly hoarse voice came from the mirror. Sage Jinan frowned. His expression changed. He also wanted to get rid of Hanju, but his instincts told him that the other party was very difficult to deal with. He might even be harder to deal with than Li Muyi. The figure in the mirror said, "We have to do it even if it's difficult. Otherwise, don't even think about transcending the heavenly Tao. You will always be a puppet of the heavenly Tao." Sage Jinan's expression turned ugly. He could only grit his teeth and agree. After preaching for 100 years, Hanju quietly stood up and left. The effect of a sage's lecture was on another level. A large number of disciples broke through while listening to the Tao. Hanju sat on the 36th grade reincarnation world destruction Black Lotus. He took out the Book of Misfortune and started cursing Qiu Shilai. This fellow had tried to affect him when he was attaining the Tao. He had to teach him a lesson. Hanju cursed as he checked his emails regularly. Your good friend Ji Xianshan has stepped into the river of destiny. Your grand disciple Fang Liang's soul passed through the primordial era and was stopped by the ancient master of calamity. He was severely injured. Your good friend Huang Zuantian was attacked by Jia school cultivators, X7829. Your son Han Tuo has received guidance from your good friend Zhang Gusheng. His cultivation has increased greatly. Your good friend Li Daokong has comprehended a mystical power in the Tao lecture. His cultivation has increased greatly. Your disciple Zhou Fan obtained your good friend 7 Tao Sage's dream. His comprehension has increased greatly. Your good friend Jing Tiangong has stepped into the pseudo-sage realm. Hanju watched with relish. Feng Liang had been jumping around in the primordial era and was finally punished. It was fine as long as he was not dead. Who was this ancient master of calamity? Hanju decided to calculate after the curse ended. He sighed when he saw Zhang Guxing's name. He recalled the past. He did not expect him and his son to have the same fate. Hanju wasn't worried that something would happen to Han Tuo. If something really happened, he could also predict that no matter how far away it was, he could still save him. As long as it didn't harm his soul, Hanju wouldn't act even if he died. True experts could only rely on themselves. Hanju didn't want Han Tuo to think of him when he encountered trouble. He still liked him very much. He hoped that he could grow up well. It was also a good thing if he could become a great figure of the hidden sect in the future. Visit and Felben. CM for EW Uvels. Hanju also noticed that Zhou Fan had obtained the dream of the Seven Dao Sage. He had to be wary about this. Seven Dao Sage was in existence on the same level as ancestor Shitian. He couldn't be underestimated. 5 days later, Hanju put down the Book of Misfortune. He first deduced who the ancient master of calamity was. 4 billion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? 4 billion years? This was already Li Mui's value. Hanju frowned and silently chose to continue. A figure appeared in his mind, and lines of words appeared in front of him. Jin Shen, perfected pseudo-sage, ancient master of calamity. He controls the providence of the heavenly Tao and is responsible for activating the immeasurable calamity. His cultivation has already surpassed that of a pseudo-sage. Because his position as a heavenly Tao sage is perfected, he has never been able to become a sage. He is hidden in the dark forbidden zone all year round and prying into the immortal world. Jin Shen? Why hadn't he heard of him before? It was actually the existence in charge of activating the calamity. Amazing! Then, Hanju began to deduce the Seven Dao Sage. Why did the Seven Dao Sage guide Zhou Fan? 14 trillion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? So high? Hanju's eyelids twitched. He could only choose to continue. Seven Dao Sage is preparing for his tribulation. He is not only guiding Zhou Fan, but he also has no designs on you for the time being. Preparing for his tribulation? What tribulation would such an existence face? Hanju was curious. But since the Seven Dao Sage didn't want to harm him, he didn't care. After resting for a few days, Hanju took out the Book of Misfortune again and started cursing Sage Jinan. Sage Jinan had a 5-star hatred towards him. He wouldn't rest until the other party was dead. Hanju couldn't be bothered to calculate the reason. In any case, this fellow didn't know the Dao Destruction mystical power. He would kill him before this fellow took action. 5 days later, Hanju's lifespan began to decrease. Far away in the Dao field, Sage Jinan frowned. He had doubted Hanju regarding the Dark Forbidden Lord, but he had never harmed him. Why would Hanju want to harm him? From the current situation, Hanju was clearly afraid of karma and trouble. The Dark Forbidden Lord should be one of the other sages. This time, the Dark Forbidden Lord came menacingly. The curse power far exceeded before. Sage Jinan had been cursed before, but it didn't affect him much. He wasn't even sure if it was the Dark Forbidden Lord. He had only deduced a book. There are rumors in the immortal world that the true Dark Forbidden Lord uses a book. If I can't deduce this book and didn't deduce it when I was cursed, this means that the other party is not the Dark Forbidden Lord. It seems that no matter who the Dark Forbidden Lord is, some sages are indeed plotting. Sage Jinan's eyes flickered with killing intent. He believed that he had never offended anyone. To actually attract the curse of a sage, it could be said to be an undeserved calamity. Furious, he circulated his energy to resist the curse. The curse power of the Dark Forbidden Lord was truly terrifying and was still increasing. After a while, Sage Jinan couldn't take it anymore. He suddenly stood up and disappeared from the hall. He found Li Mui. Senior! Someone cursed me. Sage Jinan appeared in front of Li Muyi and said anxiously. He then meditated and continued to circulate his energy to resist. Li Muyi frowned and immediately called South Extreme Heavenly Venerate and Sect Master Tianju over. The two sages frowned when they arrived and witnessed Sage Jinan's situation. Li Muyi stood up and used his dermic powers to help Sage Jinan. He said in a low voice, "Currently, we can be certain that the Dark Forbidden Lord is not among us. We have to put down our doubts." South Extreme Heavenly Venerate and Sect Master Tianju had ugly expressions. Who was it? If not for Li Muyi calling them over, they might have doubted each other in the future. Such intentions were punishable. Too sinister. Oh no, come quickly. Li Muyi's expression changed drastically as he shouted. Sage Jinan's face darkened and his body trembled. Wisps of black aura visible to the naked eye wrapped around him. South Extreme Heavenly Venerate and Sect Master Tianju hurriedly reacted. The three sages helped Sage Jinan resist the curse. Inside the Taoist temple, Hanju's expression was extremely ugly. His lifespan had already decreased by 40 trillion years. It was about to reach the level of Sage Fated Secrets. The key was that his cultivation level had increased, the Book of Misfortune had increased, and he had consumed so much lifespan. Could it be that Sage Jinan was stronger than Sage Fated Secrets? No! Other sages had to be helping him. I don't believe it. I'll curse you until you're crippled even if the Heavenly Tao helps. Hanju's eyes turned ruthless. He was already a sage, yet Sage Jinan still dared to hate him. 5-star hatred points was definitely dangerous. As long as Sage Jinan was given a chance, Hanju would be dead. 45 trillion years. 50 trillion years. 60 trillion years. Because of your curse, the sage heart of your enemy, Sage Jinan, cracked. Fortunately, your enemy Li Muyi helped. Because of your curse, the sage heart of your enemy, Sage Jinan, cracked. Fortunately, your enemy Sect Master Tianju helped. Because of your curse, the sage heart of your enemy, Sage Jinan, cracked. Fortunately, your enemy South Extreme Heavenly Venerate helped. Hanju still didn't stop after seeing these 3 emails. Continue cursing.